Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the first ever Portland Startup Week this week. I hope you all have had a chance to participate in some of the events this week and continue on today and actually all through the weekend. Did my mic go up? Yep. Just a second. Lower back. Yep. We'll make a quick switch. You want to try to mute batteries?
We need batteries over here.
You need batteries over there too?
It wasn't perfect 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Yeah,
Bear with us.
We'll just share.
Share? Okay, does this one work? Yeah. Okay, great. So as I was saying, hope everybody's had a great time with the events this week for Portland Startup Week. Welcome to our discussion this morning, learning from the experts, strategies to build a world-class tech team here in Portland. My name is Mark Schachter. I will be the host and moderator of the discussion this morning. And I manage our direct hire services group at Edgelink. We're a technical staffing firm here, headquartered right here in Portland, Oregon. We have a second office that services the Denver area. And this month, Edgelink is celebrating 12 years, specializing in recruiting talent in all areas of software development and IT infrastructure. We're very pleased to have earned the diamond level best in staffing ranking from Innovero's Customer Loyalty Index survey. And I have been with Edgelink for 11 of the 12 years Edgelink has been in existence, and I've been in the staffing industry, technology staffing industry, for a little over 17 years now. And I enjoy working with startups through that whole time and have helped many startups build their teams. So let's get started with introducing our panel of experts today. Starting immediately to my right here is Mike Portwood, VP of Engineering at EID Passport. A little bit about Mike. In his role at EID, Mike is responsible for managing software engineering, software quality assurance, integration engineering, and field operations departments. He has over 25 years of experience in software engineering and software engineering management. His primary focus on development is on developing enterprise-class applications and systems, has a passion for building high-performance software development organizations and the resulting high-quality software solutions they create. Prior to EID, Mike has a diverse background working for Department of Energy, Pacific Northwest National Lab, IBM, GE Medical, or GE Healthcare, Unicrew, Tektronix, and has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from University of Oregon State University.
Careful.
I don't want to go there. All right, so give a round of applause if you would for Mike Portwood. Next to Mike is Claire Hernandez. She is Director of Customer Support at Puppet Labs. Claire's been working in the software industry in Oregon since the late 90s and has held leadership roles that have managed technical and other functional teams. These teams have been both inside the service organization as well as outside, and have included developers, system admins, QA, DBAs, and more. She's held a variety of roles, including a general manager role at a healthcare software company that grew and then shrank and then grew and was ultimately acquired by Kronos. She's currently a mentor at the Portland Seed Fund and is working and advising a startup there who just released their first version application, so congratulations on that. She's also a founder of the Technical Services Committee for the Technology Association of Oregon and volunteers for a girls' team as well. That's a lot. That's a lot. She's very passionate about teams who differentiate themselves in the market, and she has a master's in applied communications from Denver University. So please Give a round for Claire. Down on the end here, we have Christian Kafer. Yep. As Senior VP of Technology at Incom Digital Solutions. And Christian oversees all of the software development and technology infrastructure for Incom Digital Solutions. He has over 15 years of management experience with industry-leading organizations. He was a co-founder of Gift Tango Corporation in the beginning, where he served as the COO, CTO, until they had a successful exit when they merged with Incom in 2012. Prior to Gift Tango, Christian managed multi-million-dollar technical project teams that helped build a viable profit centers that have led to successful acquisitions, including one that was from Microsoft. He has a master's degree focused in management of technology for startups with a track record of innovation to facilitate sustainable relationships and drive projects to completion. Thank you for joining us, Christian. Okay, we're ready to go here. So to start out the conversation, we'll look at the big picture, the entire Portland market as a whole. It seems like there isn't a day goes by now where we don't see, where we haven't seen an article commenting on the incredible growth that the Portland tech scene has experienced over the last 5 years, since the Great Recession. A huge rebound, and we're growing faster than I think we ever have in the tech scene history. With the tech sector at near full employment now, competing for talent is getting tougher than ever. So how do you see Portland actually keeping up with this increasing demand? Start with Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a couple things, you know, I don't know that Portland is keeping up, frankly. If you're a hiring manager, you know how hard it is to find good, qualified candidates. But there are a couple things I was aware of that I wanted to draw attention to, because I don't know how widely known they are. Both Portland State and Oregon State are now offering programs for degree holder, non-computer science degree holders, and I'm a software guy, so I'm going to focus mostly on computer science in my responses. But in addition to their normal 4-year coursework to get a bachelor's in computer science, both schools are now offering accelerated programs for people who already have bachelor's in other fields to add a computer science degree on top of that. Oregon State's is, we've talked to them, and theirs is online, but they have mandatory points where the students have, even if they're, no matter where they're located, they have to come to the Portland area and meet up for face-to-face activities. Portland State's program is called New Beginnings. So as an employer, we're certainly looking at those as sources of additional talent, again, in addition to the traditional four-year Bachelor of Science. A couple other things, I've had very good success in the past drawing students out of OIT. They may be calling themselves Oregon Technology anymore, but both the Portland campus and the Klamath Falls campus, particularly, they have a very, if you're in a Microsoft environment, that's their kind of educational environment. And so we've done when I've been in a Microsoft development environment, we've done very well recruiting from there. And I'm sure every company, and I think there's even some efforts, I know there was a video done by TAO to pull candidates from out of the area. And a lot of people do want to move to the Portland or the Northwest because of the quality of life. So out of area talent recruiting, if you are recruiting, you should definitely keep your eyes on resumes that come from distant places, because a lot of times those people are very happy to relocate themselves. Not always, but we've run across many people who have said, yeah, you hire me and I'll load a moving van up and be out there in 2 weeks. The other thing that I know we're relying on is developing a lot of our own talent through just ongoing training, formal, internal, external, formal training, and not necessarily sending people back full-time to college, but picking up additional skills, moving people. I had a bullet about recruiting non-traditional tech talent. So we're pulling people out of other parts of our organization who've demonstrated the technical capacity and moving them into roles like application support, where SQL knowledge is predominantly what's required, but that's a building block potentially for them to move into software quality assurance roles, and even we've had one individual move from that out of our customer service organization into an application support role, and subsequently into a software development role. And the beauty was, because he came out of the customer service organization, he knew our product from a user perspective inside and out. So those are a few of the things that came to my mind about other places to go looking for talent besides your traditional go steal from the employer across the street.
Yeah. Very creative.
I use Edgelink. Since 12 years, really. So there are a couple of things. As you may know, there are companies like Treehouse that are offering the ability to take both free and for-fee classes to a broad audience. It depends on what you're looking for, but certainly from an entry-level position, being able to get somebody who has a base level of skills and then develop them. At Public, we use interns. We're going to get a couple of interns, and I intend to put some kind of chip in the back of their neck so that they'll never leave. And then there's a company that I know of who uses students who are full-time students in computer programming courses as adjunct staff members. So their teams are comprised of part-time students who are going through college, who when they graduate have pretty much a guaranteed job. They are making more money doing their part-time work as a student than the majority of their peers. They are learning to use the skills, or they're actually applying the skills that they're learning during their student years to their job, and they're affordable. So I think it's a very creative model, and it is something that has worked very, very well for this particular company. Their students are based in Arizona, but there is no reason why they couldn't apply here. And I think that is very effective. The other thing is remote staff. And that's got its own set of challenges. We have remote people on my team, I have one. And even just that one person I know feels somewhat disconnected. So the challenge with a remote person or a remote group of employees is being able to make sure that you are sensitive to their needs and including them as your fully fledged team member, despite the fact that they are not actually sitting next to you. And there are multiple ways to do it. There are multiple ways to do it badly. And so it's something that if you do end up going that route, it's worth spending time investing in how to make that successul. And one of the things that I do with my person is just ask him on every single conversation, what do you need, how can we include you, what do you want, and making sure that they are really kept included and feel part of the team, despite the fact that he's working out of his spare bedroom with my little pony as his everything. So.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I would say, I would reiterate what we said earlier. In the short term, I don't really see Portland keeping up with the demand. I see what is happening is we're trying to keep up the demand by looking outside of Portland for especially mid and senior level talent. And salaries are going up very rapidly right now. A lot of that has to do with we're using help, which tends to drive up salaries a little bit, but we're also trying to compete on salaries. And additionally, one of my biggest challenges right now is I have companies from Seattle and the Bay Area doing a lot of hiring in Portland and allowing people to work from home. And their idea of competitive salary is much different than mine. It makes my job very difficult. But that is what's happening. what we're trying to do, which I imagine other companies will do, is heavily sell on things other than salary. Now, I can compete on salary, but that's not always what I'm going to be selling on. So culture, not just the culture of the company, but the culture of Portland as a whole. The tech community in Portland, we've got a lot of unique aspects of our community and our city that, for the right kind of people, and a lot of those kind of people are the kind of people that I want working for me, are very attractive. So I think basically what I'm saying is what companies will do to keep up with demand is find new ways to attract people, new ways to incentivize people to work with us. Outside of that, what I think will happen in the long term is, as you guys talked about, the different code schools in Portland will get more popular, and potentially more code schools will pop up, and that'll feed a lot of the junior and mid-level talent in the area, and yeah, that's what I see happening more in the long term to try to keep up with it.
Great. Christian, I'm going to stay with you for a second here and piggyback on something you were just mentioning in terms of salary. Recently, the Portland Business Journal had an article that mentioned Portland tech incomes rose by 9% in 2014 alone. I did a little looking around, and that's actually a little more than twice the increase of the Portland median household income for the past 3 years. As employee costs rise, this is going to put even more stress on startups, particularly trying to compete for talent. So with your background, degree, focus on startups, what are some advantages that startups could take in their message to help them attract and actually win some of this talent?
Sure. So yeah, a lot of what you just said sounds kind of scary to a startup, and even what I said about salaries going up probably sounds scary. Well, guess what? If you're a startup, don't worry about it, because if you're trying to compete on salary, you're way off base to begin with. So my answer to you, this is not something that would scare me at all if I was a startup. I will say transitioning from a startup to a much larger, more established company, I actually wish I could go back and be a startup when I'm recruiting people, because you have a ton of advantages being a startup. You have equity, most likely, if you're willing to give that away. And if you are, well, I strongly encourage you to do that if you're a startup. You are going to be expecting people to probably do more than you would with a more established company, a larger company. You're expecting them to invest their life in you, and be prepared to reward them. So offer equity. A larger, more established companies, we can do that, but not like a startup can. So that's a huge advantage. And structure that equity so it makes sense to you. Don't have it vest in a year. If you're scared of just giving away your company, then structure it so you're not giving away your company. Structure it so you're rewarding people when they're successful. And looking back at what we did, I wish I could go back and reward my employees more than what I did. I mean, we did do well. We were successful. I think we made everyone happy. But if I could go back, I would have done more for the people that worked their ass off for me. So that's a big one. Also, culture for a startup. I mean, when I purposely, we had our offices downtown. We were looking for downtown tech Portland people. That's who we were. That's what I was selling. Larger companies, a lot of times they can't do that. You're a startup, sell that culture. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and the kind of people you want are looking for that. They're looking for being able to make an impact. They're looking for not having a ton of red tape between them and getting something done. And a lot of times they're looking to be a hero. They're looking to, a customer's got a problem, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to slam it into production, and it's Tuesday. That's not something I would allow my folks to do right now. We support huge customers, tons of transactions, but at a startup, that's what we needed. We needed that mentality. We needed those people. And there are tons of people out there that they're looking for equity. They're looking for the startup culture. They don't want a lot of red tape. They want to know that their voice is always heard and that they're part of every decision that gets made. It's easy to sell. When you're recruiting, it's a little different. The first thing you're doing is taking somebody out to coffee or whatever, and you're just selling them, and you're letting them know how cool it is to be part of your startup. And if they're not in line with that, if all they're looking for is salary, then, I mean, me personally, I'm not looking for them. That's not who I want. So, yeah.
You have a little passion there on that.
A lot.
Awesome. Love it.
It's that throwing things into production that scares me. But I've lived that too. For me, it's about culture and fit and the mission of what you're doing as a startup being compatible with your values. And so if your product or solution is something that means something to me as an individual, I'm going to be a lot more motivated as a person on your team than certainly the salary piece. You're right. I mean, that's nobody goes into startup to make money as a salary. They go in for the future, right? They're going in for that equity. You need people who are willing to take risk. You need people who know that this has the potential to go one way or the other, and that you can be okay with whichever direction you head up or down. And that's really, really important, because if you can't tolerate risk, you can't be part of a startup. And so that's something that I think is really important to establish early, because if you have no threshold for risk, don't you pay your coffee bill and head on down the road. But I'm, you know, like Christian, I have tremendous passion for the things that I do. I'm very fortunate that the startup that I mentor is in a space that is very meaningful for me. And so, but as an advisor, I don't have to take the kind of risk that employees do. But that team, they are incredibly passionate. And that's the thing that is really overwhelming from my perspective, is that everybody there really believes that what they are doing is going to make a difference to the audience that their product is targeted toward. And that is huge. So that's one of the things that I think is really, really important.
Great. Yeah, you guys did a good, I don't have a lot to add. You did a great job, I think, of covering that ground. I was thinking along the lines of culture as well, the nimbleness, the opportunities to be creative, and influence was a good one you mentioned, Christian, where you know that you're going to have a much more proportional say in how things go than at a mid-sized company or an established company. And so on top of that, the only one, pre the Great Recession, there was actually a very strong culture here in a minority of people who consider themselves startup junkies. And they'd go to one and they knew it'd be a 2-year run, and they hoped that there was a payout at the end, but even if it ended in collapse, it was fine, you go find another job. And I think that took a serious hit in the 2007, 8, 9, 10 time frame, but I suspect that will rebuild itself, and particularly with new people, younger people coming into the market and that mindset, and they see what's happening, particularly in Silicon Valley and here and in Seattle. But I have a feeling that culture will reemerge and reappear, and I look forward to it, because those people, as you said, Claire, they understood the risks, they were willing to take the risks, they understood the sacrifice of a trade-off, salary for potentially more lucrative rewards down the road, and hopefully we'll see a reemergence of that. It's not for everybody. It wasn't for me. I know there's a lot of people that didn't fit in that box, but pre-recession, I knew 5 or 10 engineers who were looking for startup opportunities and wanted to get in as early as possible to get as much equity as they could, and they knew it might crash and burn, and they were okay with that. Anyway, so that's all I have.
I think you guys are all spot on that, and this is why we're doing the Portland Startup Week, to try, it's just another piece of building the startup community back up in the Portland area, and I think it's taken off now. I think that the fire's been lit, and it's really good to see that there's a lot of new startup blood in the Portland market. So love to see that. We were going to save some audience questions for the end here, but I saw a hand rise up.
I did.
Maybe we'll take one right now, just because it's relevant to the startup idea, I think.
Yes, it is. Thank you. That's a good description of the factors that appeal to people in the startup labor market. But any thoughts on channels for finding them? Because I think a lot of them are getting, employed.
Who wants to take that?
They're, well, I mean, they're, I'll get So there's millions of meetups. That's the first thing. So you find a meetup that has your particular topic. There is a Portland startup that has a newsletter feed, and I'm going to have to try and remember the name before somebody say it. Switchboard.
Switchboard. Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome resource. Both, I love it. I love the ask and give. It is such a great resource. And really, truly, this is a very small community. Even though it's getting bigger, it's 5 degrees of separation. I would argue it's 2 or 3 degrees of separation. You just have to meet one person, they will introduce you to 2 or 3, you ask, I mean, that's how I do it. I ask everyone I meet to introduce me to 2 more people, and it's just organic. So, and I know I'm a very service-oriented person.
Christian, do you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you how I did it, which is at a much smaller level, aimed just right at startups. Every hire we made for the first 3 years was huge, because we were not a startup that was cash rich at any point in time, and these were big decisions. So we'd get a number of people together in a room, we would figure out what we were looking for as far as skill. We already knew generally what we were looking for as far as culture. We would get on LinkedIn and we would find the people in Portland that matched exactly what we wanted. And basically, I would reach out to them as COO of a startup and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what we're doing, I just want to get together for coffee. And this is a very targeted, takes a lot of time, but it was worth it, and it worked. About 40% of the time, I wouldn't get a response, or I would get a, hey, I'm happy where I'm at, that's fine. Personally, that's not the person I want anyway, because if they're really a person that wants to be part of a startup or in the culture we're in, they're going to come have coffee with me. The fact that I'm a CEO of a startup reaching out to them, why wouldn't? I'm sorry if you're working for a large company, but somebody like me, it's worth them going out to coffee with. But then I'd go out to coffee with them. I got an idea of their skill set for LinkedIn, assuming it's all accurate. And all I'm looking for at coffee is culture, and just figuring out who is this person, what they're about, and I'm selling them hard on what I've got going on. And then we'll go through the interview process later. I'm not worried about any of that right now. But that's how I did it. And the reason I had a group of people together is for what you just said, the 2 to 3 degrees of separations. Once I had just 5 people in my organization, in my technical side of my organization, it was really easy to know a lot about people. It was one phone call from one of us. I have a guy who's spent time at WebMD, I've got a guy that's spent time at Intel, I've got a guy, so we know everyone between the 5 of us in Portland. It was really easy to just make a phone call and know if this person's worth our time. Once we've had one conversation with them and we figured out that, hey, this is somebody we might want to go after. And between doing those 2 things, if I got somebody out to coffee and had a good conversation with them, I would say I had a 90% success rate of hiring that person if I wanted them.
Did you have anything you wanted?
No, I think.
I'll add a little bit to that as well, along the lines of what Claire and Christian are saying. It's kind of a multi-pronged approach. you need to be doing a little bit of everything to get to what you're trying to accomplish when you're building your team. And that includes your personal network. It's the referral base. It's who you know, who can you introduce me to. There are great resources. Clara mentioned the switchboard, fantastic resource. So that for sure. There are tons. Go to caligator.org, and there is a calendar of events that will blow you away. It is everything going on in the Portland metro area for meetups, association, user groups, things like that. Another great resource is the Portland Startup Weekend competitions. They do several a year. It's an interesting 54-hour hackathon type of competition, and you will meet people that are interested in startups. That's what they're doing. And then, of course, I have to plug my company, Edgelink, as well. This is what we do. We help people find the people they're looking for. We connect people to companies, and you know, we're another resource that you can use to help you get to what you're doing. All right, well, you had another question.
I got a tough question, but I'm filtering because I love your passion up there. First of all, you said passion, culture, meaningful. Absolutely. You said it's not about the money, which is dead on, and you're all talking about bringing the tech community together. I mean, we're really talking about community management. And my question is, if everyone's voice matters, why don't we empower everyone in the first place? Because money is dictating things, computers are dictating things, and isn't social inclusion important in meaningful conversations?
Can you elaborate on that? Just when you say, why don't you include everyone? In what context are you?
So context, I mean, connecting people in context is what we're all looking for, or empowerment is the foundation is what we're all looking for. And so culture, you talk about a culture, or the why, as Steve Jobs talked about the why. We need to break down the silos within our infrastructures, and we all need to be working together through design thinking within our infrastructure. So how do you see that transition for design thinking, bringing it in? Because the more people that are involved within your organization, internally and externally, then you win overall, and your community wins overall. So how do we get there within the tech community? Obviously combining the tech community, but not only just combining the tech community, but within developing for those meaningful culture in the overall context.
I think from what I'm getting from you, there are some forums, and Switchboard being one of them, there are some forums in the area where people can voice and collaborate and interact. There are a lot of groups on LinkedIn that are specific to the local Portland area. I think that would be an excellent area to investigate, like the PDX Tech group. Portland Mindshare was another one. There are a ton of them. So that might be an area you might want to look at, and you might find some of what you're looking for on that.
Yeah, the other one I think that I have mixed emotions about the role they play, but is the Technology Association of Oregon, which used to be the Software Association of Oregon. I'm not sure I fully understood your question, but I would like to think that that's within the charter of the Technology Association of Oregon as to how to bring, you know, we all work for individual companies, so we're certainly building, I presume, a community within our companies and being inclusive and collaborative across functions, because we know that works, and so I think we're doing that individually, but it's something like a TAO that I would look at to be up-level that and bring it to the next level and bring it kind of across, if you're asking more across industry.
Well, and to your question on that collaborative, as you're trying to scale your company, are you thinking vertically and partnering with other people to be able to move faster with your company rather than trying to do everything individually, partnering because the cloud goes this way, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I mean, we're reaching a point, and it kind of comes back to the earlier questions. You know, we can't grow fast enough. We can't hire fast enough, and so yeah, a lot of our collaboration operation. We're certainly working with various recruiting firms, but we're also branching out into other consulting firms, you know, bringing in pure consultants that we're not intending to hire, but we can bring them in. I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if that's exactly where you're headed, but that's become a necessity because we can't do it all, not at the pace that the business, at least I speaking for my engineering organization, cannot deliver the business value fast enough or in the timeframes that the business is expecting me to deliver it and depending on me to deliver it. So yeah, it's absolutely forcing me out of my comfort zone of, I got my people and I direct them and I know, you know, I know their skills and I know them very well. No, I'm having to reach out much more outside my organization and get support and expertise.
Good question, sorry. Paperwork that necessitates bringing somebody on board, where are you going to share that with the resources you're talking about?
Yeah.
So you can do an optional warrant, specific best and where you can share that document in any way like before or something.
Yeah, how do you bring people on with equity? Boy, it was, I mean, we gave options and they vested. I mean, I'll just tell you what we did. It was a one-year cliff, 4-year vesting period. After 1 year, I think we vested every quarter or something like that. But as far as the paperwork goes, it was a really simple offer of employment, and it was about 3 sentences, and that was it. And I mean, behind the scenes, we've of course got our articles of incorporation and everything that goes along with how our shares work, and you know how that's all broken down. But the offer of employment basically just referred to those terms. And you know, this is the only time I've done it, but we always were working with our attorney from day one to do these things. Attorneys are very expensive, but also help you a lot. So you know, work. It's another piece of advice. Work out an arrangement with an attorney in town. If you'd like a reference, come talk to me. I'm happy to refer you. But am I answering your question?
Partially, the issue that the most litigious aspect of the are in play. So the wording of that, 2 paragraphs, fine. First, we're giving up time to integrity that transcends security transactions, transcends the whole world of real time.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who ready to share that argument, that's valuable.
I can help there. There are standard documents to set up a company now, and it's a good attorney will recommend you to look at the standard format for setting up options, incorporation, everything. And it's very inexpensive now compared to what it was 20 years ago. So along with Christian's recommendation, I can give you one too. I'm just going to do it myself.
Good.
Yeah. Things were pretty easy with me, but probably because it all ended up successfully. So I didn't have a lot of bickering and arguing. But yeah, I found going through legal work that it just was easier than I ever thought it would be. If I wanted something, I wrote it down the way I wanted it a lot. Sometimes I'd go talk to an attorney, a lot I wouldn't. But again, I probably have a different story than a lot of people because it ended up well. And if it wouldn't have, I would have found that I bit myself a few times.
Okay, one more.
I was actually, if the structure is to wait till the end, I'm happy to wait till the end.
We'll take some audience questions in just a minute, unless it's related to, okay. Well, this is a good segue into some of the earlier reference of culture, which is, for a startup, can make or break a company, obviously. But culture is more than just having the kegerator or take your dog to work day. What do you think are some of the most important features to establish in culture, and how do you convey that to a potential new hire? Let's start with Eric.
So I'm a big fan of Take Your Dog to Work Day. So, and at Puppet Labs, it's take your dogs to work every day. So that's just really. So it's interesting. I asked a couple of people on my team, and I actually have some people on my team in the audience. that person determine whether they want to speak or not. And they came up with a couple of things. So Puppet is probably the most culture aware company that I have worked in. I have worked in companies where the culture is awful. They are also culturally aware, but don't really care as much. But culture is definitely part of Puppet, and bringing your dogs in, the kegerators and all that, I think is somewhat taken for granted. I don't know that it's a selling point. What is a selling point is the openness and the inclusion, the desire to make you as an individual, regardless of who you are, what you bring to the table, what role you play, the desire to make you feel welcome, to make you feel like you're a valued contributor, to make you feel that your opinion counts, and you have the ability to kind of do what Christian was saying. You can make changes. I mean, we're 350 people now, but each individual person can make a difference, and that difference is felt and recognized and acknowledged and appreciated. For me as a manager, the most important thing for me is that my team feels supported, and I think that transcends, you know, any industry, any business. Your responsibility as a leader is to set the tone for your group, whatever that may be. At Puppet, I would say the primary component is inclusion, acceptance, and there's a lot of swearing. F-bombs. That's the first company I worked in where it's okay. So, usually when I do it, I have to define it.
I guess it's very therapeutic then.
Yeah.
It's the point.
Yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. In a startup, you know, my thoughts were that there is some culture that comes from the top down, and that may be the approval to have, you know, bear at work or bring your dog, bring your pets. But I think equally important, particularly, and again, I come from a company about the size of yours, Claire, a little more mid-sized company. You know, I had swear there's a majority of it that comes bottoms up, but you can shape that a little bit, and it's really, if you're a part of the management team, that really the contact between your technical leaders, your first level managers, you know, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. So for me at least, I try and guide and coach those folks within my organization to make sure that they're having the desired effect and cultivating the kind of culture we want within our business. And yes, there are things that they can be good things or bad things that come from the top down culture-wise, but I think day in and day out, to a lot of people, what really matters is what's the culture of my Scrum team, what's the culture of my subgroup, what's the culture of the overall department for me engineering, and they hope and desire that other departments have great culture too. But again, they're where you're going to hang on to people versus not hang on to people is what is the culture in their specific team, and a lot of it, giving them the freedom to say what do you want the culture to be, gets buy-in and investment, emotional and otherwise. And for us, you asked kind of Mark about the how do you sell that, if you will, to recruits. We don't make a big effort to sell it, but we are brutally open and honest with our interview candidates about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And fortunately, in my opinion, there's not that much bad and ugly, but there are some, and we'll happily share those with candidates. And because we want them to leave with a sense of knowing exactly what they're getting into, and if they accept our offer, if an offer of employment is made and they accept it, on day one they know exactly what they're going to walk into. They understand the culture, they understand the products that they're going to be working on, they understand who they're going to be working for. We don't want any mystery. It just isn't worth it. And we've been very successful because of that. People come on board, I'll ask them, 3 weeks or 3 months later, did you get what you thought you were going to get coming here? And the answer pretty much uniformly has been yes. And they're appreciative of that. So
Yeah, I'll try not to do too much repetition here. Yeah, sit down, talk about it amongst your leadership, kind of decide what the boundaries are, allow it to organically grow as long as it's fostering your goals. Talk about it, be very deliberate about it, and like you said, if you're hiring someone, tell them your culture. That's the easiest way. Tell them and show them. And in terms of showing, build your physical space around the culture you're trying to inspire. Even when you're a startup and everything's IKEA, you can do that. Whether that means no cubicle walls and everything's open so it can be collaborative, or it means cubicle walls so that people can work on an individual basis, however you decide to do that, or if it means furniture that allows each team to do whatever they want. Just build your space so that you allow that, and that will help you also communicate it. When somebody walks into my office when I was a startup, or even today, and they just walk, the first thing we do is walk them around, and I guarantee 90% of what they've got in their mind about what our culture is, they're right. They've got it. All they had to do was walk around my office at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you probably got a good sense of what our culture is. And reward the culture that you're trying to inspire. It will organically grow. I personally think it's okay, just like you said, to let that happen, but I will get it under control when I need to. And part of doing that is not enforcing boundaries harshly, but rewarding a culture that's going the direction that I've talked about and I'm trying to inspire.
Great. Maybe one more question before turning it over to the audience, because I can see people are chomping to ask you guys some stuff here. But talk about diversity a little bit, and specifically women in the workplace. Women in the workplace has been a topic of discussion for a very long time in the tech sector. And it's actually very encouraging that Portland specifically has seen quite an increase in this dialogue of attracting women to technology. So how can we in the tech community get the message out there to help get more women involved in pursuing technical careers? Mike, you want to start out with this?
Yeah, a couple thoughts, and this was a tough one for me. I have two daughters, and I've wrestled with this question because neither has shown particularly a lot of interest in not just technology, but STEM in general. So I asked my 16-year-old daughter last night, I asked her the question, and she said, make it glamorous. I was like, okay, how do we do that? And she kind of drew a blank, and so did I, but I thought I'd share that with you, some honest feedback. But I do know this isn't getting women in, but I know once you have women in during the recruiting process, I know for me that when we have women in for interviews, they need to see other women. And for a while, we were an all-male organization. So as we began to get more females in, it became easier and easier, because as they walked around for interviews, or the person they were interviewing with was a female, and it just created a higher level of comfort. Like, God bless the first woman that came to work for us in a sea of men, or 20 people or something at the time that were all male. And it was like, thank goodness we got her in, because then it just has progressively become easier. But actually attracting women into the STEM, it doesn't have to be software or hardware, but I don't know. But because particularly in Portland, with like I said, we said in the first question, with the not keeping up with the supply and demand, that is our best supply source. And we've got, and I know they're looking at a state level and even nationally, but I wish I had the brilliant answer, but I don't, and I know it. Maybe Claire does.
Well, so I've been one of those only women in the male organization. My first tip to you all, don't talk about football and nothing else. Because that's a surefire way to alienate the token female. I'm actually delighted that over the X number of years that I've been in software, that there are more and more women. So that's encouraging. I also participate in Women in Technology. PDX, a fabulous organization. They actually have an event this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. I encourage you all to go. So it kind of goes back to the inclusion piece. While we are not men, we are still people. We have the same values you do. We want to be included like you do. We don't want to be highlighted or called out because we are women. We want to be recognized for our contribution, regardless of gender. It really, really is something I'm passionate about. We don't want to be as good as a man. We want to be as good as we can be. And we want you to help us achieve that goal. Our gender has got nothing to do with it. Don't look at us as women. Look at us as candidates who are qualified to do the job and measure our performance based on your expectations. And that, I mean, and I don't know, ladies in the audience, if that's how you feel about it. But really, we are very capable. In many cases, we bring something that you can't just from a perspective, and that adds just another flavor, the same way anybody else who is different brings to your group. I mean, you could have a group of 5 people, regardless of gender or ethnicity. They're all bringing something different. They're all bringing their own unique contribution. So recognize that, value that, make it safe, make it easy to be a woman. Don't be doing all that football or whatever, the stereotyping thing is. That's not going to help you. So, the glamour bit?
I guess I should have asked you for a definition. What is glamour?
Yeah, I would like to know for myself.
Yeah, I don't have, I knew we were going to be talking about this subject, so I went out and asked a lot of questions among my own staff, which just the fact that I had to go out and ask a lot of questions probably highlights that there is a little bit of an issue here, that I hadn't really put a lot of thought into this. But I actually learned some interesting things. Hopefully I'll start to answer the question with this, but it's a tough question to answer. How do we actually get more women and interested in tech and involved in tech? But from a corporate level, you guys talked about a lot of great things, not just for women, but for any diversity in the workplace. Something I learned that I really hadn't thought a lot about. Luckily, looking back, I think I've done this right, but maybe it was just luck. Be really careful how you expose your organization to the rest of the world. And for things like job recs, something in Portland that I see a lot of is, hey, we want to hire a coding ninja. We want somebody with nunchaka skills, because that's just funny, and they want somebody because people think that fits with their culture. Well, those types of statements actually will cause people to exclude themselves, because their concept of what a coding ninja is could be very different than what the person writing the job recs concept of a coding ninja is. So that's just something to think about. Anytime you're exposing, I totally agree with what you said. Always have women involved in the interviews. If a woman comes into an organization and interviews with all men, that can be very intimidating.
I don't know that it's intimidating, it's more alienating.
Yeah, maybe they are. Just, yeah. Okay.
Girl power.
Well, I guess I meant intimidating in a different way. Okay. Another thing to think about, again, this isn't focused just on women, but this is very common for Portland downtown startup. Does every event you have start at the Kegerator? If you are a Portland downtown startup, we've got a lot of people who think, yeah, it does. That's just what we do. Think about that, because not everyone, again, this isn't just a woman thing. This could be anyone. That may not be their thing. I'm not saying don't have fun, don't use the Kegerator or whatever, but think about it. Be conscious about it, and to try to appeal to everyone. That, from a corporate level, starting to do that thing and those things and having more companies doing those things will in general attract more women. Now, another thing I found when I was asking about this, and I went and talked to people like myself who have daughters and sons, and what I found is that when people talk to their sons in high school and they just ask them about tech in general, the types of words that they used were video games, fun, building things. When they talk to their daughters, the types of words that came out was boring, heads down, typing, just general negative connotations, and it was pretty consistent from the folks that talk to their daughters versus the folks that talk to their sons, which just makes me think, I know that we can't necessarily, it would be a lot to reach out and say, hey, every school and every kid should have to go to a whole class about tech. That's probably way too far, but maybe simple, even if it's just an hour in a social studies class, but a simple introduction to what tech is at a younger age, and us as parents, us as the community, and whatever influence we can have on schools, just the most basic understanding of tech. What are the different things? Scrums, project managers, QA, just what is this? I don't think that at an early age people understand that at all, and I think that is probably causing some of the exclusion early on.
There's a couple of things to add. First of all, support Girls Inc. because we promote STEM in middle school, and that is really the time that girls make a decision on whether to go science versus arts. And that's a very broad generalization, but that's a key time in their life. Chick Tech is another organization that spends a lot of time in schools. So as business leaders, as innovators, as people who are making a difference in the community, you can have a huge impact in changing the direction, including girls especially and women, and really moving the dial, because it's important.
Yeah, and by the way, if you are a startup, having women or just diversity in general is important. We started a company, very similar story. I had 12 guys, and once we had a few women in the organization, I was a little blown away by how much things changed in a positive way. In that, what I saw was a whole different, during design meetings and marketing meetings and whatever, just a whole other view of the world that a few months ago we may not have even looked at. And just not just women, but any level of diversity. And it caused us to, at the very least, see more than we had seen before. So, it's a good thing, and I think that's why we're asking the question.
Okay, well, we are now going to, do we have a mic? Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and take some audience questions here.
If you don't want to use the mic, you don't have to.
We have a question over here.
Since hiring is so hard because of keeping up with demand, can you talk a little bit about, I touched a bit about remote work and what you're doing to explore that, as well as part-time and job sharing, if that's anything that you've explored.
Yeah, in general, that's not my thing. I'll just be, I know this is going to be a common thing and everyone has a different view on it. We are extremely flexible about allowing people to work from home. If you got the cable repair guy coming between 2 and whatever, 10 o'clock at night, fine. Stay home, work from home. We have great collaboration tools. If you're just on a project and you've been overly distracted for whatever reason, you need to just focus on your own and get something done, fine. But in general, I really don't allow people to work from home like, you know, every Friday or half the day. Job shares I might explore if as long as I can have people consistently in the office. But again, I'm very deliberate about my culture, and my culture is having people in the workspace, being collaborative. We're a heavy Scrum development team, and I want people together. And I know that's a very different point of view than a lot of people will have, but that's my point of view. So just throwing that out.
Well, I'll add to that. That's kind of what I started there, but because out of necessity, I've been pushed to open my mind a little bit more. The thing we still do is we very much expect that at least initially people are going to spend enough time on site to really get to know the people, the products, the processes, but once we establish that at a level and we get an understanding of their level of ability and capability, then we're actually okay with that. I've had a remote worker in Walla Walla. We're interviewing a guy who would be working remotely from Idaho. I've got one of my longtime employees who is somewhere in South America, working full time. I don't even know what country he's in. And I think you hit on a key point, Christian, is the change we had to make was a better job of embracing the enabling technology. So whether it's Link for remote communication, Skype, I don't care what, some collaborative software, make sure everybody had headsets and cameras, and it forced us to switch from physical Scrum boards to more virtual Scrum boards so that the person who's remote can just log in and see, okay, here's the task and here's what we're moving. But yeah, out of necessity, we're very much getting there, and I think I pushed some bounds organizationally because a lot of people, particularly early on, a lot of people really thought it was going to fail, particularly when one of the first people was the guy who wanted to go travel the world. But fortunately, he'd been there for 5 or 6 years and was a key kind of architect. But a lot of people thought he would leave and go to South America on his first trip and not return. And fortunately for me, we got a strong relationship, and he was just as determined to prove to the company that would work as I was. So he did return, and so I dashed a bunch of people's fears right there. And because of that initial success, I keep pushing the envelope, so to speak. So.
Yeah, that's actually, I appreciate what you just said. It's something I'll add to what I said, just because of what you said. Part of the reason I have the attitude I have is because I understand the maturity of my organization. We grew, and we're at a different level of maturity, I think, than you are. We grew very quickly in 4 years, and our technology is more monolithic than I would like it to be. We're heading towards more of a service-oriented architecture. Our documentation processes is almost non-existent. We grew extremely fast, and now we're in a different stage of maturity. But we're not an extremely mature organization, both as far as some parts of our technology platform and our ability to work together. We definitely have the technology you talked about and the ability to do it, but I'm very worried about what it takes to make a safe update to our platform and work on our platform, which is part of the reason I have the attitude I did. Once we get to the next level of where we want to go, I think my attitude will start to change. So, thank you.
The only thing I have to add is make sure you enable them to be as productive as possible, either through tools, collaboration, involvement in meetings, because the worst thing for a remote worker is feeling alienated. So if you can nail how to avoid that, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, and it's important to communicate to the people that are working remotely that it's incumbent on them. They have to be extremely proactive because otherwise they do feel isolated, they feel disconnected, they lose contact, they either never absorb or they lose what the culture is, and culture is important. And frankly, part of that is to keep the culture part going, frequent visits, coming to we have one location, so it makes, for engineering at least, so it makes life a lot easier. But the people in the field, we expect them once every 2 months to come spend a week or 2 weeks with us so that they can reground, reconnect. We've hired new people. It would be nice if they were there to meet them face to face, not virtually. But it puts there's a lot incumbent on the person who is opting to remote. They get a lot of benefit, but we make them realize that there's a lot of things. The proactive nature is incumbent upon them, and we'll do our best. And they're certainly invited, but if they start opting out of participating in things that are important, then it's going to become a problem.
We go over to the gentleman who's been really patient.
I don't know your thing. So I've been trying to figure out how to articulate this question in the most succinct way as possible. From my experience in the technology world, it used to be a lot simpler. Like when I first started, you could basically know HTML, JavaScript, C, something like that, right? And that was the technology stack. And pretty much everything was an iterative part of that, right? Maybe there was some Perl scripting or something. Nowadays, there's so many different technologies, and this place might be a Microsoft shop. You guys might be doing custom Java development. How do you, from a two-part question there. So how do you, from a owner, like look and figure out this is a person that's going to fit into my org and grow depending on how my technology changes over time? One part. And the second part is if I'm a person who's a technology resource going to a code school or going to Portland State and doing these classes, what's the core skills that I need beyond just being smart and able to learn and flexible? Those are kind of a given, right? But like, what's the basic like tech background that I need to have that's going to enable me to like grow into whatever way the company?
So I don't know that there's one answer to that question because of exactly the scenario that you described. There are so many different programming languages that you can pick from and get expertise in. I think it's really incumbent on the individual to know either what company they're targeting, what skill set they're targeting, where they have a natural aptitude. I think that has to be part of the equation. And then, is what I'm studying in demand, basically. So I probably didn't even remotely answer your question.
Well, that's so as a follow-up, maybe what's in demand. So what's in demand, right? Like what is it right now that's really the highest thing? And then how do you insulate yourself from 6 months down the road or a year down the road when it's a totally different technology?
Well, if you're asking me, I'm going to tell you Puppet.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
If I can, I'll take a whack at that. In your first question, I'm going to respond to 2 ways. One of the things we weigh most heavily, and it fits in I call it team fit, but it's also culture. One of the key attributes we look for is continuous learners. Your skills, as long as we're assured that you have some ability to design, if you're a software developer, to design and implement software, will generally be satisfied. So on the QA side, as long as you have the ability to analyze a complex piece of code and figure out what are the ways it can break and how do you need to test it, we'll be satisfied. But the continuous learner part, and then we back that up with ongoing training. The continuous learner is our key. That's the main thing we're looking for. So yeah, because 5 years from now, it is going to be a different technology. In 10 years, when I grew up, there was in school, the teaching language was Pascal, and in industry, it was C and Unix. And if you do that, you were golden. And a little bit of Fortran, but that was on the decline. 10 years earlier, if you'd known Fortran, you were golden. So if you're not a continuous learner, you're going to have to either burn out of the thing, or you're going to do what I did doing management. I actually learned a little bit of management, probably not as much. And then how do you know, the part B of your question, or part 2? That's a hard call, and it definitely varies. There have been employers, when I'm in a Microsoft environment, I'm definitely looking more towards, I've had great success with OIT because that's their teaching language. They're using Microsoft technologies, their teaching stack and teaching language. When I've been at other employers that were more Java-centric, I've looked at other places. And if you're right now, if you're looking for open source development stuff, then Oregon State's got a great program, Linux, Unix, and then open source development tools. Oregon State's a great place. So Oregon State. So I kind of, depending on what you study and where you go, and I'm sure this is true of code camps too, is going to position you better for certain employers versus other employers. But you know what? If you're a continuous learner and you know Java, that doesn't mean I wouldn't hire you in a Microsoft environment. And similarly, if you're a Microsoft person and I go to a Java environment, I might hire you again.
Python, by the way, very popular. Highly.
You want to add?
Yeah, again, I don't want to restate that was perfect. When we hire junior level developers, what we want to see is, first of all, that they know that when they don't know something, they understand they don't know that. We just want to see that they're open to learning new things, which is exactly what you said. But a big thing for us, and this may not be for everyone, but a big thing for us that we kind of hope is that they understand that at least the concepts of test-driven development and unit testing. That's pretty important. They don't need to know exactly how, like we do it. They just need to understand the concepts and kind of have a general agreement that this is important and something I'm willing to do. Other than that, when we interview them, we put them in a room with 2 developers and we put a problem and we have them whiteboard it. We don't expect them to get it right. We're not even looking for them to get it right. What we're looking for is for them to sit there and work with us to come up with a solution, to ask us questions and just be collaborative, because that's what every day is in our environment. And so the very basic stuff that I hope that is what they're teaching them, just design patterns, the foundation of development, maybe object-oriented programming, those types of things. That's really what we're looking for the junior and mid-level. Once we start getting up in the higher mid-level to senior, then we're going to be expecting some more specific skill sets.
I think we have time for one more front row here.
Says what matters.
So this is a little bit about the women in technology. I feel really fortunate actually because I was on the flip side of everything you guys are talking about. I was sort of raised in a culture. My first job is at a digital agency where it was predominantly women. So I never really felt alienated in the way that I know a lot of women do. I also own a digital agency now that's woman-owned majority. We have 7 women and 2 men, 2 of which are coders and then project managers, and I have a CFO that's a woman, and then I'm the COO. So this concept has always been very weird to me in some ways, just because I wasn't exposed to it. But I think I read an article the other day that gave me a perfect way of describing the way that I feel about this, and it's about how we need to stop thinking about women in technology as engineers, because there's so many other jobs that are still part of technology that makes our problem-solving thinking and our conceptual thinking really valuable to a bigger picture of all the jobs that we're doing in technology. And mine's a digital agency, so it's a little bit more focused around user experience design and empathy and understanding user motivations, and that's can be at times something that women are really good at, men are as well. But design and tech, and I mean, I don't even know how to code. I can barely read HTML, but I own a digital agency. That means nothing when it comes down to understanding problems that clients are having and how to look at user motivations and understanding brand strategy and all those different pieces. I'm just wondering how you guys are feeling about that and how we can help bridge that gap a little bit better with women to make sure they understand that you don't have to code to still have a really great career in technology. You can be a startup owner, you can be a manager, you can participate in marketing or brand strategy for startups. There's lots of amazing jobs. And I don't think people really understand, from what I'm understanding outside of my own experience, that they understand that there's that many opportunities that are really there and they're exciting.
So that's one of the things that I am trying to push with Girls Inc. Because I'm not a coder. But it doesn't mean that I don't understand the technology or how it works and manage technical teams. So that, yes, I mean, I feel very strongly too that just because you're in tech does not mean you have to be a developer or even, QA or anything to do with tech. You can be project manager. I mean, there are so many roles. You're absolutely right. And it is something that we need to do a better job of. So I am on my campaign to let people know, yeah, there are jobs in tech that you don't actually have to be technical for. So it's really exposure. And again, open-mindedness from people to think more broadly. I get to answer that one all by myself.
So, Claire, I know for your time, we have to excuse you now, right?
Can I have
Yeah. So, if everybody could give Claire stand. probably time for one more. Yeah, this gentleman in the back here.
I'd like to ask a question.
Ask a question.
Does that work?
Yeah.
First of all, great panel. Thank you. I do have a question. We've heard a lot of amazing, tips and advice of how to grow and build your team in a positive way. I was wondering if the experts have any, tips or advice of something that we should not do. We've heard a lot of things that we should do. How about any tips you can give us to send us on our way that we should absolutely not do?
Oh, you're wanting us to reveal our dirty all the screw-ups we've made in the past?
I didn't get a chance to ask that one.
In terms of hiring specifically?
Or just overall, could be hiring, or when it comes to building your team, any tips there?
You need a minute? I can it's a little, it might not be perfectly apropos for this audience, but I definitely made a mistake with a former employer in that we kicked off a technology project and invested significantly in it, and I didn't kick it off, somebody else did. It was handed to me to deliver. And I had my blinders on. I was like the mule in the plow in the field. I had my blinders on. I was going to get that thing done come hell or high water. What I didn't realize, and should have somewhere along the line, is it was the wrong thing to be doing. The costs were spiraling out of control. So it is a technology story, but yeah, I was. Somebody handed me something. They said, "Here, you make it, you complete it," and I just put my blinders on, and I should have pulled my head up and said, "Does this even make sense?" It does, and in the long run, in hindsight, of course, was perfect. It didn't make sense, and had I just paused for just a moment and looked around, I would have said, "We're not doing this." And I hate to, it would have been a hard message to deliver to management that you have sunk this amount of money into this thing, and I'm telling you, you got to kill it. So killing, and that's, sorry, just to elaborate a little bit more. Creating software and putting it out in the world is hard, but what's even harder? Killing it. If any of you have ever gone through, how do you end something? And I haven't had to do it often, but a couple times, I swear to God, you could make a fortune if you open a consultancy of how to end of life software. So, food for thought, because we don't usually do it, and we're so geared around the creative and the go-to-market, and great, it's wonderful, but what do you do when Wonderful 2.0 comes out? If you didn't build in a migration strategy from Wonderful 1.0, what do you do with Wonderful 1.0, and how long do you keep it around, how long do you pump money and resources into it? And so there's a business idea for anybody that wants to start a consultancy on how to end of life software.
Yeah, as far as growing the team, I'd just say, don't, it seems obvious, but don't go against your values and what you want to achieve. Like, be very clear about what those are to yourself, and that's actually, it's kind of hard to do right now, because in this environment, people are getting, if you find someone good that you want to hire, there's a good chance that 6 other companies are talking to that person too. So it's very easy to make a very quick decision, and have a conversation. Well, they don't really blend in really well over here. Well, we need this person, we need this role. Let's pay them what we need to pay them and get them on board. I've made mistakes in the past doing that. Take the time you need to take. If you feel like you've got to get this person and there's something about you that worries you, with somebody like Edgelink and hire them on a contract to hire, so that and make it very clear to them, I'm hiring you on a contract to hire because I really like you, but I'm really worried about this, and just be totally upfront with them, so that whatever happens from that point, there's no surprises, and you work with them on that. I've made a few hires because I felt like I needed to hire quick, and I needed to fill a role really quick, that a year, 2 years, even more quickly than that, I've regretted. I've regretted doing it. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. If you're interviewing or responsible for hiring and you have qualms about team fit or cultural fit, walk away. I don't care how good technically and talented they are, walk away.
Okay, great. And on that note, we're going to end our discussion today. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.